What is something someone said to you that hit you the hardest?
Never grow up. Just learn to be an adult. Thanks, Dad.
When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up. C.S. Lewis.
Never make fun of someone's laugh because they will be self-conscious about being happy. Waking up to gold is a beautiful thing. Thanks.
Very true. In middle school, my friends would try and make me laugh cause it was a hiccupy laugh that sounded like a squeaky toy. I finally realized that they weren't making me laugh to make me happy. They were making me laugh so that they could laugh at me. I spent a couple years self-conscious and trying to change my laugh, so now the squeaky toy laugh only comes out when I'm not thinking about it.
I've lived a good life. I'm ready to go. My grandma, who is still physically and mentally healthy. I just wasn't ready for it.
My grandmother spoke openly about this in the last years of her life. She wasn't even remotely a negative person, and wasn't suffering from any life-threatening illness. But she was in her mid-80s. Had 2 healthy children and 2 grandsons that had grown up and started their own lives and families. She had lost just about everyone in her life that she knew, and while she cherished her time with us, it was limited with us living far away. She was just matter of fact about it. She had lived a very good life. One full of challenges she had met head-on and persevered. Had built a life for herself she was proud of, and saw it slowly seeping away due to small health issues and the eventual reduction in her ability to live her life the way she wanted to. She told me she spent most of her time alone in her room reading and watching TV, and that there were no more surprises for her. So she was ready for her life to end before it went downhill. The last time we spoke about this, she had been suffering from some minor memory issues, but she was lucid and joking around with me. We told each other that we loved one another, and I told her that she meant the world to me. We hugged and I left to go back home. She ended up getting pneumonia and slipping away peacefully a few months later. That conversation was her saying goodbye. Though we didn't know it at the time. And look, I didn't want her to die. I miss her like crazy. But I respect the hell out of her attitude and how she approached her life and death. We should all be so lucky and courageous that we're able to face the whole breadth of our lives with that much honesty and grace. So yes, sometimes people really are ready.
When you find someone better, please just let me down gently.
Are you still with the person who said this to you?
What up? I got a new phone and went out of state for the weekend on the same day. I tried to activate the new phone, but they wouldn't let me until I was back in my home state. On the drive home, one of my friends called my brother, who I was with, to get a hold of me and tell me our other friend committed suicide. Later that day, I got my new phone activated and got a text from the friend that committed suicide that just said "what up." He must have sent it not long before he killed himself, not knowing I couldn't text back. I can't imagine how alone he must have felt. I know it sounds conceited, but I can't help but think if I was able to talk to him, maybe he wouldn't have done it. Also, really wish I didn't use my porn account for this post.
I know it sounds conceited, but I can't help but think if I was able to talk to him, maybe he wouldn't have done it. If that's true, who knows the countless times you've saved him before. https://suicidepreventionlifeline.org/donate/.
You just feel like a chore now.
I said this to a good friend of mine once when we were living together, and instantly regretted it when I saw the genuine hurt in his eyes. Granted, he was in the depths of alcoholism at the time and had seriously pissed me off and tested my patience. But it still wasn't a productive thing to say, and I saw such true shocked hurt in his eyes that I stopped the argument right there and started processing his reaction with him out loud. He is healthier and off the booze now. Thank God.
This happened when I was either 6 or 7. Mom, why are you always hugging me? Me? 'Cause you're my mom. Mom? Yeah. Or you just want to feel my breasts. 20 years later, and that still bothers me. 'Cause that was the first time I ever felt ashamed/dirty, but I couldn't understand why.
Okay. This is by far the biggest WTF in here. What an absurd, ridiculous, Super weird thing for a mother to say. Sure it was your mom? Not some random lady? Lol.
That was an incredibly weird thing for her to say. Like really fucking weird and inappropriate. My point is, don't feel bad. That's on her, not you.
Not me. But a friend of mine was smoking on a break at work and a woman did the whole "why smoke? Smoking's bad" thing, and he said he just didn't have a good reason to quit. To which she said, "Son, there are people you haven't even met yet who are going to need you here." I never forgot it. I quit just a month or so after that, and I remember it whenever I'm about to do something stupid, so daily.
My father passed away 4 years ago from smoking. We always talked about how I wanted to become an engineer, he wanted to be one, but his father had forced him to study medicine and he didn't want to break his heart. I'm just about to finish my first year in engineering school, and this made me tear up thinking if he'd have quit had he read that, and how he'd have felt if he was still here to see me. I'm sorry to open up, but I really had no one to tell this to without feeling extremely vulnerable. So I thank you for making me remember my father, and you're a wonderful person overall, and quitting smoking has only made you a better person, heart.
It doesn't matter if you hit a home run or strike out. I'll always be your #1 fan. My grandpa when I was going through a very rough time.
My mother once told me, "I think you've been miserable your entire life," in regards to my depression. It may sound like a horrible thing to hear. But she was not trying to upset me. She was basically saying, "You've done everything you can by yourself to try to get out of this depression. But I think it's always been there. So you need help."
She may have said it quite harshly. But at least it's acknowledging your depression and not denying it. Hope you're better.
Man. I wish I had your mom. Mine looked at me and my depression and said I made the biggest mistake of my life by not having an abortion when I was pregnant with you. I was 12. I'm now 35. And just the thought of it still makes me cry.
Last time I saw one of my friends, he told me catch you on the flip side. He hung himself a week later.
Recently lost one of my good friends in a similar situation. He was a mutual friend of my best friend and they lived together. My best friend and him wrote a song, and then while my best friend took his son home he hanged himself. No blatant warning signs or anything. He just did it like it was an impulse. Last time I saw him was about 1 to 2 weeks beforehand, and we were talking about starting a D&D campaign and what we were gonna do for Christmas. Sorry for your loss, man.
I'm proud of you and your brother. From my dad. He grew up with a conservative, religious, military household. Old school mentality of dad works and only is involved in family when it's time to discipline. I was always shy and depressed and hated disappointing him, and it came to a point when I started driving and got my car stuck in snow that I didn't want to tell him about it. When my mom told him, she made it clear his kids were afraid of him and he realized he had become his dad, which he hated. The change has been extreme. From a strict, work yourself to death, hard ass to a family guy. Told me on my wedding day that he was proud of me and my brother. Because he never heard it from his dad.
When I turned 18, I rebelled and became a pretty bad drug addict. It broke my parents' heart. Even after I went to rehab and cleaned up. My dad wouldn't tell me he loved me or that he was proud of me. He's ex-military and grew up with a very hard-ass alcoholic as a father. It wasn't until my husband, fiancé at the time, called him before our wedding and told him that all I ever wanted to hear was that he loved me, and that even though I spent a good chunk of my 20s fucking up, to hear he was proud of me for cleaning up, moving forward in life, and becoming successful. Since that phone call, my dad and I talk every day, and I think we tell each other that we love each other about 4 times before we end up hanging up. Today he told me I was a beautiful mother to my children. I've always held him in the highest regard. I still struggle with alcoholism, but he stays by my side and roots me on. Now, I am sure to let my kids know how proud I am of them and how much I love them. Hugs to you. Op. I feel ya. Edit. Thanks for upvoting this. Makes me not feel so alone. Heart. Edit 2.0. Thanks for the medals. Heart.
We all find you annoying. Since then, I've always been the quiet kid.
My grandma told me something once that stayed with me. Not everyone is going to like you. And that's okay. Something so simple helped me become more comfortable with myself.
I wish you could just stop caring what he says. My dad. After I got the umpteenth emotionally manipulative text from my abusive ex-husband, this was over 2 years after our divorce was finalized. My dad doesn't say much on an emotional level. So when he does say something, I know it has deep meaning. I went no contact with my ex, and remain so to this day. And I'm a much happier and more serene person for it.
Being good to people won't make them good to you.
A coworker once told me all stress is relative. You have no right to undermine what someone else is going through. No matter how small compared to your stress. I think about it a lot. He was so right. I was young and being in a hole.
When I was a little girl, I adored my dad. Followed him everywhere. Wanted to do everything he did. And I sure tried. He was never great at saying how he felt. But I always remember saying, "I love you, Daddy." And he always replied, "I love you, daughter." When I was a preteen, he had no idea what to do with me, and backed off hard. I was super awkward as a preteen/teenager. And our relationship was super rocky. We had a lot of hurtful exchanges. And I spent as little time at home as I could. In the summer of 2007, I wrote him a letter, telling him that the way he distanced himself from me was hurtful. And that I didn't know how to deal with the harshness of our current relationship. But that I still loved him and wanted to try and move past our painful interactions and rebuild our relationship. He never responded to most of it, but told me he was sorry, and wanted to fix things. 2. That winter, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I moved home and took over household things, helping deal with doctors, physical therapists, and eventually hospice. My mom was, understandably, a mess. And I tried hard to hold it together for them. Things were getting bad. He was fading hard. One night I went in to say goodnight to him. And in a wave of nostalgia, I said, "I love you, Daddy." He hadn't spoken all day. His throat was dry. He was on massive doses of morphine. But he still whispered back to me, "I love you, daughter." He slipped into a coma that night. And never spoke another word. Edit. Wow. Thank you for the platinum. But especially thank you everyone for all the kind words and understanding. To everyone who is going through this, or feels this pain, you're not alone. Purple Heart. Edit 2. Thanks for all the awards and karma.